Hello, my name is Stephanie. If you're looking for a review on the Millennium series by Stieg Larsson, then you are definitely in the right place. In this video, I'm going to be reviewing the original trilogy, so the first 3 books of all of the books within the series. There are additional books. I believe they're novellas, but they might be just a continuation of the story. If you aren't familiar with the Millennium series, you might better know it as The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. That's the first book in the series. There is a movie, I believe, created after it. I'm not sure if it's a movie series or a movie. Again, didn't look into it that much. This is a little bit of a cop-out review, and I apologize for that in advance because I got a new used camera and I don't really know how to use it yet, so I've already done this review. And it turns out there's a lot I need to learn about this camera before I use it as my main recording camera. This is the second time that I'm going through this, and I anticipated this would happen, so that's why I'm doing a no spoiler review of the entire trilogy versus doing the books individually. I should also say that I did these as audiobooks through Audible, so I'm not reviewing the physical copies, I'm reviewing the Audible series. I listened to the ones narrated by Simon Vance through Audible, and we did the English version because this was originally, I believe, written in Swedish. Quick synopsis from my perspective of the entire series, but mainly the first book so that there are no spoilers for the rest of the series. We follow 24-year-old Lisbeth Salander, who is somebody who is just getting their first taste of independence and freedom. She has a photographic memory, so she uses that to her advantage to become a private investigator. She's also very, very, very tech savvy, so she is really good at her job. Through her job, she is introduced to Mikael Blomkvist, who is a journalist who works for a small, it's either a magazine or a newspaper. Unfortunately, I don't super remember if it's a magazine or if it's a newspaper. I want to say it's a newspaper, but try not to be too upset with me if I got that wrong. Mikael Blomkvist is hired by one of Sweden's most wealthy families to look into the disappearance of Harriet Wenger, and Lisbeth Salander and Mikael Blomkvist work together to solve the mystery of what happened to Harriet Wenger. Find out if she just disappeared or if she was murdered, and if she was murdered, who was responsible. That is a very general overview of what the first book is about, and the rest of the series follows thereafter. So the rest of this review is going to be spoiler-free, so no worries. I won't spoil anything important for you. So the first book is basically an introduction to all the characters, or at least all the main characters you're going to be following throughout the series. There are some others introduced in the following books, but they're not as important. And the first book is really about establishing a reader-character relationship for these main characters, so that way moving forward you have a little bit of buy-in and you understand their motivations for the other things that they get involved with. The first story is isolated from the rest of them. Each book almost has its own story, and then there's an overarching story that follows throughout the entire series, which was really wonderfully done. A very good balance of both. All of it having to do with Lisbeth Salander's history and family. That is slowly revealed to you over the course of the 3 books, and then in the 3rd book comes to a head and gets really intense from there. Sorry if you can hear the sirens. I would say out of all of the books, the first book was my favorite. I really enjoyed the mystery thriller aspect of it. It's more mystery than it is thriller, and I would say the 3rd book is more thriller than it is mystery. The first book is such a great introduction into this world. The characters are really deeply thought through. Oh my god, are you serious? I'm actually gonna wait for the siren to go. I would be shocked to find out that there are any ASMR artists who live in New York City, and if they do, how in the world do they do it? So absolutely love the characters, love the character development. I especially love seeing Lisbeth's progression throughout the series, because her character development is really fun to watch. What I really like about Lisbeth Salander's character is that it is kind of revealed about her character throughout the series that she might be autistic. She's never directly given a diagnosis necessarily, but a few times it's called out, and what I really love is that she knows she's different. She knows that she's not like everybody else, but she not only doesn't really know why, but she doesn't really care either. As long as she gets to live the life she wants to live, as long as nobody's hurting her, and as long as nobody's hurting the people she cares about, she really doesn't care what other people think, which I really respect about her her character. But she is a little awkward. She does have a hard time picking up on social cues and things like that. It is apparent that she's very different, but also extremely intelligent and very capable. Throughout this series, nothing about her mental health status or her physical health status impedes her ability to achieve her goals. There's a point where she's like bedridden and she's still ruling the world, which I absolutely love. She's a very strong character. I want to put up a few trigger warnings for this series, especially the first book. The first book is very graphic in its sexual assault and abuse. So if you have a hard time reading that, trigger warning this for sexual assault and sexual abuse. I guess the only other trigger warnings I have for this are possibly addiction, just general violence, because it isn't kind of an action thriller, especially towards the end of the series. There's a lot of violence, a lot of guns, a lot of blood, a lot of major injuries. So just know that that is in here. There's definitely murder and mystery, but the biggest trigger warning I have is for sexual abuse, sexual violence, sexual assault, especially in the first book. I think the first book could be really hard to read for survivors of sexual abuse, so just, I wanted to heavy trigger warning that because I was not expecting that. And it's really weird to hear a narrator read it out loud. I almost felt awkward for the narrator, even though he did it very well. I really love the narrator, Simon Vance. I think he did a great job. I'm not huge on audiobooks, but if I didn't do audiobooks, I would never read all the books that I want to read in this lifetime. So they're really nice to have to listen to when I'm doing dishes, folding laundry, stuck in traffic, whatever it might be, because I don't have to visually be attentive to what's going on. I'll save my opinions on audiobooks for another video because as necessary and as amazing as they are, I'm not huge on audiobooks myself. But little pro tip, if you struggle with voices and things like that, that the narrators give the characters, if you listen to the audiobook on 1.5 times faster or 2 times faster or even faster if you can keep up, it really helps with when you're struggling with the voices that they give the characters. Things that I liked about this book: the character development is really, really good, especially over the course of the series, but within each book there is definitely character development. The characters are pretty well thought out, with the exception of one of the main characters, Mikhail Blomkvist. He's a little blah. Like, he's almost the Bella Swan of this series. Like, he's described as, like, you know, fairly attractive, but not anything special. But for some reason, like, all these super attractive, successful women just kind of fall in his lap and are just, like, attracted to him or fall in love with him. And so it's just kind of like, that doesn't really make sense. Like, why is it so easy for this apparently average Joe to just to get not just like attractive women, but like successful and ambitious women? He is an intelligent guy, he's an ambitious guy himself, but it's just the way that it's so easy for him to just like find these women. Where I'm like, the guys that I personally know that are single, who are also very intelligent and attractive, like struggle a lot more than this guy does to find love. And within the book series, there is no social dating apps, so I just really want to know what the guy's secret is. A little bit lazy writing on the part of that specific character, but I also enjoyed him as a character because he had a tendency to like put his foot in his mouth, and it was really fun to watch him like work out of that. He is kind of awkward. He's more individualistic than Bella Swan ever was. And if you're not familiar with who I'm talking about the main character from Twilight. And it's been a long time since I've read that, but I remember feeling that was like my main thing. I was like, why is she described as so plain, yet all of these guys are like fighting for her love? And like, kind of how I feel about Mikhail Blomkvist as well. Anyway, this book has really fun thriller action sequences. Like the action sequences, the violence, the fighting sequences are actually really good. I feel like in most books there is kind of a missing element of that visual storytelling when it comes to action sequences and fighting, unless you're really good at it and unless you use all the tools and descriptions in the right way. Sometimes it can just feel like, oh, and then he's doing this, and then he's doing this, and like while you understand that there are high stakes, you may not feel them. This series did a really good job of actually making you feel like they're fighting for their lives and give you the same kind of thrill that you get from watching a TV series, at least in my perspective. I definitely got that feeling, which is something I don't get for a lot of books, pretty much all books. That's why I don't really like mystery thrillers, because the thriller aspect is usually missing for me in a book. There have been a few books who definitely capture that thriller feeling, but not too many. But this is a series that definitely captures that for me. It had my heart racing. I was on the edge of my seat. I wanted to know what was going on next. I wanted to, I guess, flip the page. I don't know, like, continue listening even after I got to my destination or had to do something else or put it down. Plot-wise, the mystery aspect to the first one is really, really fun. The second book is kind of forgettable, I'm not gonna lie. It felt a little bit like a filler book, but the third book is definitely worth getting to. I remember enjoying the second book. I just don't really know, thinking back on it, where the second book ended and the third book started. I think I glommed them together in my brain, and I'm seeing the whole picture of those two books put together, so I don't really remember the second book individually. But definitely the third book was really good, and I really enjoyed the ending. I think it was a great ending. I think it ended perfectly. And I loved seeing just where the characters ended up and how their lives changed. A little irksome about this book, and I don't know. Oh, hi. It's weird, my boyfriend plays Magic the Gathering online from work, but I can see him playing it on the computer and it's distracting. It didn't bother me enough to call it really like a problem with the storytelling or anything like that, but something that I did notice is that either Stieg Larsson or this book universe in general is very anti-monogamous relationship, which is actually super interesting because I think this book came out in the mid-early aughts. I don't know, I could be so wrong about that, but this book came out 15 to 20 years ago, where open relationships and things like that were not, or open marriages and things like that were not as mainstream, were not as common as they are today. I personally know quite a few people who are actually in open marriages or relationships, and I fully support their decision because they seem super happy. Their lives seem super full. It seems to enhance their relationships rather than cause turmoil within them, so I fully support it. But this book, really nobody's in a monogamous relationship. There's one set of characters who are in a marriage, but the marriage is an open marriage. By the end of the series, there is actually one character who is like, hey, I would like us to be monogamous if that's cool, maybe. And so there's that, but other than that, like, everyone in this book sleeps around with everyone else, and it's okay with everyone, which is fine. Like I said, it's not like a problem, but I was like, they find it very interesting that there's really no healthy examples of monogamy in this book. I'm not sure if that was a Stieg Larsson thing or if it was a thing within the universe of this story, or maybe it's a Swedish thing. I don't know. If you're Swedish and you watch this video, let me know what like dating in Sweden is like. It's very common to have like open relationships and marriages and things like that in Sweden. I don't know that much about it. Just something I noticed as an American who grew up in a culture where like monogamy was the end-all be-all of everybody's existence. At least growing up it was. These days it's definitely not seen the same as it used to be. I know people who are monogamous and plan on being monogamous for life but don't want to get married. I know people in open relationships. I know people in open marriages. I know people who are polyamorous. So many different expressions of relationships and love in this world, and I think it's really amazing that we've gotten to the point where it's super, well, at least in my circle of people, it's super common. But I was not expecting that from a book that was written 15 to 20 years ago. It seems like it's only been the last like 5 to 8 years that these types of relationships are out more often, like more talked about. People live these lives more openly and freely. I think with the invention of the dating app, it made it a lot easier to find people with like-minded relationship values, I guess. I don't know what to call that, like relationship, like, it's not like your sexual orientation, it's just your relationship preferences, I guess. Don't really have much more to say about it other than that isn't spoilery. I'm not gonna have a spoiler discussion section in this review, but if you do want to discuss it more, and if you want to discuss with spoilers, definitely hit me up on my Bookstagram account, which is bookstagramsteph, which is linked below. If you want to discuss the book down in the comments, absolutely, let's do it, but just be mindful that we don't want to give too many spoilers down below. I don't want to spoil this for too many people. Like I said, this isn't my usual type of review to do on my channel, but I will be doing a lot of these reviews where I review a series as a whole instead of the individual books, because unfortunately I read and finished a lot of series last year and I was not on top of making videos, so I didn't make videos for every individual book like I have for some series on this channel. I still want to review the series overall because pretty much all the ones that I read last year I loved, and I would love for other people to pick them up, and I want to talk about why they're worth your time. So just to wrap this up, this series is definitely worth your time, especially if you love mystery thriller, but if you just like psychological books, introspective books, if you just like books with deep character development and just generally good writing, then this is a really great series for you. If you struggle with audiobooks, this is one of the better ones to try to get into. The video is not sponsored, by the way, just Audible is what I use to listen to audiobooks. But yeah, I think that's all I have to say about that. So until next time, I will definitely see you later.